Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all very much for coming to the Maryland Department of Agriculture. Can I get a shout out from our team in the audience? Yeah. And that's just because they're excited. I'm excited because this is our first time hosting Governor Moore to the Maryland Department of Agriculture. Can we give him a round of applause? We're thrilled to have the governor join us for this very important occasion. We've had the opportunity to partner with the Capital Food Bank and the Maryland Food Bank to do two very, very important things. The first thing is we're encouraging the purchase of local agriculture and local catfish, which will support our local farmers and support the community. Secondly, those purchases are going to take fresh local food to those who need it. So I'm thrilled about this partnership. I'm very excited about where we're headed. Some details on this program. MDA is in receipt of $6.1 million, and that's broken down into two checks. And they're pretty big checks. The first one is in two parts, $2.3 million to purchase produce to the Maryland Food Bank, and also to the Maryland Food Bank, $1 million to purchase agricultural products, including meat, eggs, milk from Maryland farmers. Capital Area Food Bank is also receiving a check for $1 million to purchase produce from our local farmers and $1 million to purchase other associated ag products, and $500,000 carved out to purchase blue catfish. I don't know if you know about blue catfish, but there's 110 million pounds of invasive blue catfish swimming around in the bay. Can I see a show of hands of who's hungry? Because this is a problem for which the solution is to eat our way out of it. So I'm thrilled that we're encouraging the food bank and encouraging Marylanders through this program to do that. This funding of this grant would not be made possible without support from the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So many programs flow to the states, and they're funding things that make Maryland better. They're funding things that make agriculture more profitable, and they're funding programs that make rural Maryland a better place to live. We've got small farms through this program who will be able to diversify their income stream, like Baltimore County's Bobby Priegel, a small dairy operation who makes delicious ice cream and milk. When does our ice cream trail open? End of May, June?
Not soon enough.
Not soon enough. Governor, we're going to be out on the ice cream trail. I hope you like ice cream.
Oh, yes.
Because there's a lot of it. We've got Nick Hargrove here from Tillman Island taking a break from the bay, branching out to make, in addition to just bringing in blue catfish, he's got a new program, a new product to begin selling catfish nuggets. Any way we can market this is going to help us out of our problem. J.J. McDonald, selling Chesapeake blue catfish to grocery stores and restaurants, and now will be able to increase their sales, increase their flow by selling to the food banks. I want to acknowledge the fact that it is the start of spring, which means it's extremely busy time for farmers. This is when the work gets done. So thank you to our farmers for taking some time out of your day to be here. This is a huge win for the Chesapeake Bay, for watermen, and for the hungry. It's about connecting and growing to make farmers more profitable while addressing the food deserts and shortages inherent in our system. With that, I'm extremely excited to offer these checks and to talk a little bit more about our program through some great folks here. I'd like to introduce Department of Human Services Principal Deputy Secretary Karnitra White to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful day, and what such a happy occasion to be here. I'm so happy to be here to celebrate this important announcement. First, let me thank Secretary Atticks and his team for their initiative in applying for the federal grant and bringing these millions of dollars into our state. and increasing the supply of locally grown and harvest foods. We're happy to be an active partner in the Moore Millers administration efforts to end poverty in our state. The Department of Human Services works to combat food insecurity and help alleviate hunger through Maryland's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly known as SNAP, and our long-standing partnerships with the area food banks, as well as the USDA Food Nutrition Service to support the distribution of USDA foods in our state. Hunger is a significant problem in our society, and yet, for so many of us who are able to meet ends meet, it remains an invisible problem. But many Marylanders struggle with food insecurity. In the recent years, the demand has soared for emergency food assistance. In each of our 24 local departments of social services, we saw and served many adults, families, and seniors for the first time, people who had never needed our assistance before. I've also seen this personally at my church, who gives away food each month, and we partner with our local food bank to serve hundreds of families at our monthly food distribution. We serve some of the same families each month. So the federal and state investments will greatly enhance the state's capacity to feed Marylanders and also support our local farmers and watermen. I'm grateful to our food bank partners, our local food pantries, and the many volunteers who work tirelessly to provide food for those who are in need. I know I speak for Secretary Rafael Lopez when I say how grateful we are at the Department of Human Services to be a part of an all-government approach, all-community approach to end hunger in our state. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Principal Deputy Secretary. Next, I'd like to introduce USDA Agricultural Marketing Service Director, Administrator, Bruce Summers.
Well, good morning, everybody. First, I just want to say thank you to Secretary Atticks, Governor. Thank you very much for including USDA in this really great announcement that we're making this morning. The USDA's Agricultural Marketing Service helps provide domestic and international marketing opportunities for American farmers, ranchers, and producers of food, fiber, and specialty crops. We also provide the agriculture industry with important services to ensure quality and availability of wholesome food to consumers across the country. Over the last several months, we begun to issue cooperative agreements with states and territories and tribal nations to implement the Local Food Purchase Assistance Cooperative Agreement Program. Now, this is a program that provides almost $900 million to support local, regional, and underserved producers and communities across the country. As part of USDA's Food Systems Transformation Framework, the Local Food Purchase Assistance Cooperative Agreement Program is one more way that USDA is creating more and better markets, supporting the administration's vision of transforming the food system to one that is fair, it's competitive, it's distributed, and it's resilient. Its support of local and regional markets allows our state partners to target purchases from local farmers, and in the case of Maryland, local watermen as well, while also helping to fill the demand for healthy food options for communities in need. By design, the program is intended to allow flexibility so that our partners can establish local food purchasing with local producers that best suits the needs of the local community. It accounts for the seasonal harvests that are different across the country and intends to meet the needs of the local population in their communities. And one of our major goals for this Local Food Purchase Assistance Cooperative Agreement Program is to offer those in need healthy food produced closer to home. The other is to build and expand economic opportunities for local producers by building bridges that foster new long-term relationships between producers and the communities at the local level that will hopefully outlast this program, quite frankly. The Agricultural Marketing Service looks forward to moving forward with other cooperative agreements across the state and moving from design and into implementation of these programs. I want to say congratulations to the state of Maryland and the Department of Agriculture for seizing the opportunity to provide underserved communities and producers with the food that's needed. So thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you very much for having us today. We look forward to the results.
Thank you, Administrator Summers. Next up, Maryland Food Bank Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer, Meg Kimmel.
Good morning. Of course, I'll start the same way by saying that it's an honor to be here today and on behalf of the entire team at the Maryland Food Bank to express our gratitude to Secretary Atticks, to Administrator Summers, to Principal Deputy Secretary White, you have a very long title, and to Governor Moore for your commitment to this work. The Maryland Food Bank believes that all Marylanders should have access to good quality, nutritious food. We've been doing this work for more than 43 years here in Maryland, in 21 counties, and in Baltimore City. It's work we know well, and we do it well. When the pandemic hit in 2020, the Department of Human Services and the state turned to our organizations, ours and Capital Area Food Bank. We did not know how we were going to keep food flowing to meet historic levels of need, but we figured it out by working together. We were able to disperse pandemic relief funding equitably across our state to keep our local network of community-based, place-based organizations open, operational, and resourced. Maryland fared better than other states in the region and in the nation, and we are grateful for the trust that the state has placed in us to be good stewards of federal and state funds. Unfortunately, the level of need in our state has not diminished materially since the height of the pandemic. Sure, this public health crisis has somewhat abated, but the underlying reasons that people are food insecure in the first place remain, and in some cases are even worse. The causes for that are interrelated and they're far-reaching. Excuse me one second. Don't want to miss this next point, which is that the current economic climate in Maryland is causing great strain for many Maryland households. Data is showing, we are tracking data very carefully at the food bank, and data shows that the percentage of Marylanders who struggle to pay for basic household needs rose to 36% last month. And data also tells us that when asked, adults in our state say that their children are sometimes or often not getting enough food because it's too expensive. It's becoming harder and harder for Maryland families to afford healthy proteins, fresh produce, vegetables, and with the ending of the emergency SNAP allotments in February, at the food bank, we see the level of need staying at this historic high level for months, even years to come. Addressing the reasons that people are food insecure in the first place requires, first of all, an understanding of how to distribute nutritious food at scale. It's something that your state food banks are very good at. But the second piece of that is, how do we tap into people who are visiting food pantries to understand what else they might need and how else we might support them to stabilize and thrive? This is work that the Maryland Food Bank is doing today, and it's work that we did during the pandemic. In FY22, so fiscal year 22, Maryland Food Bank served an estimated 792,000 Marylanders, our neighbors, through 1,200 local partner distribution sites. Families and individuals who visit food pantries frequently save an estimated $1,500 per year on groceries. So the economic impact of the work we do on an annual basis is north of $160 million. We're built for this, and we continue to learn along the way. During the pandemic, one of our takeaways, and there were many, was that this work requires a stronger and more resilient local food system, one where the food banks distribute is produced locally. It's also important that the food that we provide is tailored to the needs, to the age, to the diversity, cultural preferences, health needs of the people and the communities that we serve. Which brings us to today's announcement. At the Maryland Food Bank, we believe that this grant this very specific activity that we are celebrating here today is a genuine opportunity to change Maryland's food system for the better. We'll be able to create, as Secretary Atticks said, we'll create a market for local fruits and vegetables, protein, dairy, and be able to get these nutrient-dense foods into the homes and onto the tables of families who do not have easy access to that food today or cannot afford it. This grant will help us to strengthen connections with our Maryland farmers, which we have a decades-long history of work together, so we're really excited about being able to do more together with our ag community and our farmers. It's also going to help us form new relationships that we don't have today with ranchers and watermen and other Maryland-based distributors and producers. And it will allow us to make sure that Maryland-based producers are fairly paid for their work. Finally, it will allow us an opportunity to learn together. I know this is a big area of interest for the USDA in the grant, and something that we're really committed to working with Mark and his team here at USDA on learning together. How can we continue to sustain these relationships and this work? How can we continue to build a more local and resilient and equitable food system for our state? So thanks to this historic partnership, we are going to be able to feed more people, strengthen communities, and end hunger for more Marylanders. And we simply can't do this work without partnerships. The type of coordination and planning that you see here today is absolutely critical to ending hunger. And before I end, I really want to take a moment just to acknowledge the work that Mark Powell has done over the last year to bring this grant to Maryland. It would not have happened without him. The need is great, and we continue to thank you for your ongoing support for our work.
Thank you, Executive Vice President Kimmel. Before we get to the next speaker, I wanted to thank two individuals who are standing up here in the line for their work to promote food and farms this legislative session, Delegate Jones and Delegate Henson. Thank you very much. This is a group effort. Next up, Capital Area Food Bank Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, Adam LaRose.
Good morning. Thank you, Secretary Atticks, Principal Deputy Secretary White, Administrator Summers, Meg, and of course Governor Moore for your leadership in this effort. It's great to be with you this morning, and I have the privilege of going before the governor, not after the governor, because that would be a tough challenge there. We're really honored to work alongside the leadership of Governor Moore's administration to bring local nutritious food to Maryland families in need through the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program. As our partners in Meg at the Maryland Food Bank indicated, food security is an enormous problem in our region. In CAFB's Maryland service area, we cover the two largest counties, Prince George's and Montgomery, and we know that far too many of our neighbors don't always know where their next meal will come from. In some of the most economically challenged parts of the Maryland communities that we serve, up to 48% of residents, nearly half, struggle with food insecurity at some point throughout the year. These rates reflect what we all know, that these last several years have been incredibly challenging, and for most of our vulnerable neighbors, times continue to be difficult. Last year, the Capital Area Food Bank distributed food for 53 million meals. That's 75% more than we distributed pre-pandemic. Economic recovery is happening, but for families that relied on multiple jobs in industries that are still rebuilding, they may not be back to full employment, and their savings, if they had any to start with, are gone. Couple this with the cost of living at near record highs, including essentials like rent, transportation, groceries, and suddenly math in a budget that was tight before becomes suddenly impossible now. Does a family pay for food or gasoline for their car, groceries or rent, dinner or medical care? We know that when people face tough academic times, food is always one of the first things to go, and in particular nutritious food, which is so essential for growth and learning in children, concentration in adults, and health in all ages is quickly cut when it becomes unaffordable. And this has serious consequences for the well-being of our communities, both financially and physically. It will take all of us working together to address the challenge of food insecurity, which is impacting the health of our neighbors and preventing them and putting them on the sidelines of our economy. This is why initiatives like the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program, through the leadership of Mark and company, are so welcome and critical. This unique partnership between the United States Department of Agriculture, the Maryland Department of Agriculture, the Maryland Food Bank, and of course the Capital Area Food Bank is already positively increasing the amount of quality, nutritious food we are able to provide. Since the recent launch of this program, we've been able to source and distribute over 5,000 cartons of eggs, 3,600 gallons of whole milk, thousands of heads of lettuce, and other foods that are nutrient dense, but also increasingly expensive. This is just the beginning. In the coming 2 years, we expect to provide well over 2.2 million meals worth of healthy, Maryland-produced food through the LFPA. This will not only help our community members, but also greatly assist food banks like ours that are buying more food than we ever have before as we continue to respond to this crisis. Prior to the pandemic, the Capital Area Food Bank's budget for food purchasing was about $5 million. Today, due to shifts in global supply chains and the same forces of inflation faced by our clients, that number is $24 million. Those levels of purchasing are unlikely to decline soon, which is why we're also glad that investment in our local economies is built into the design of this initiative. Through this program, we're excited to produce food from several Maryland farmers and producers, many of whom are smaller and newer to our sourcing streams. For example, one of our newer grower partners from Beauty Blooms in Montgomery County, Nia, give them a wave, there she is, will be providing kale, herbs, snap peas, and more as her crops come out of the ground, all of which will land on the tables of Maryland families straight from Maryland soil. All of this means that we can create a greater network of local producers, spurring economic growth right here in the state, while getting good nutrition to those experiencing food insecurity. I want to thank so much the leadership team behind us, the Moore administration, and support for this remarkable program. It truly is a synergy of efforts. We look forward to working with your teams to continue to provide nutritious food to our neighbors so that they can thrive today and tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director LaRose. And now I have the distinct pleasure and honor of introducing a friend to Maryland agriculture and a partner in food distribution to those in need, Governor Wes Moore.
That's right. Good morning. I am so excited to be here. I'm excited to be here also with my friend Secretary Atticks, who I have to tell you, your leadership has not just been tireless, it has been absolutely inspiring. So it is such a joy to work with you, and bless you and thank you and congratulations on everything. Yes. It's also good being here at the Department of Agriculture. It's so nice being with all my new colleagues and people who every single day are reminding every single Marylander that they are seen and respected and being lifted up. And so to all of my new colleagues and folks here, it is great to be with you, and thank you. And also just being here and seeing that this is really a culmination of not just new work, but it really is a culmination of work that's been going on for a long time. People have been fighting, who have been pushing throughout very real challenges and economic headwinds, through pandemics, through times when it felt like all the trend lines were moving in the wrong direction. This really is a celebration of those who continue to push and those who continue to fight. And so to have a chance to be here with not just a historic announcement, but something that is going to make our state better is really inspiring. To be here with folks like Deputy Secretary White and Administrator Summers and our dear, dear friends from the Maryland Food Bank and the Capital Area Food Bank. You know, I've about 90 days ago, right after inauguration, we announced and we said that this was going to be a state that was going to make a full frontal, full-throated, bipartisan assault on child poverty. That this was going to be the time and this was going to be the state that we would end this scourge of child poverty that we continue to see within our state. And I remember someone said, they're like, well, what is it going to take in order for you all to accomplish that? And who is it going to take? And I said, you're actually giving me an ability to answer that question with one word. Everybody. Everybody. It's going to take remarkable partners like what we have at the Capital Area Food Bank and the Maryland Food Bank, who for years have been pushing to make sure that it is intolerable that we have Marylanders in such a prosperous state that still go to bed hungry every single night. It's going to take federal partners who are not just putting a sense of focus, but real capital behind what does it mean in order for us to make together and for us to pull together a coordinated effort on this. It's going to take our state partners. And I'm thankful to be here with Delegate Jones and Delegate Henson, who I have to tell you, have just pulled together a remarkable legislative session. And when we talk about what it means and what it shows and what it looks like to take on a full frontal approach and assault on child poverty, you both have led on that, and we're grateful and we're thankful for your leadership. It's going to take state workers, and it's also going to take our farmers, our watermen, people who understand that this is about how are we lifting up our communities and lifting up our society, making sure that our state is fueled, that they're fed, that they're supported. Because when we talk about what hunger is and what hunger looks like, hunger is not a West Baltimore issue. It's also not only a West Annapolis issue. It's not only a Western Maryland issue. It's not only an Eastern Shore issue. This is Maryland's issue. And especially considering right now that 1 in 3 Marylanders is food insecure. We know that this is something that we have a universal obligation to work and solve. And it's going to take each and every one of us to go ahead and move to solve it. Because we still have a situation where we have families who are working hard, who are doing everything they're asked, and who are still living at or below a poverty line. We have children who every single day are going to schools knowing that the last meal that they received was what they had at lunch the day before. In order for us to truly grow, in order for us to truly build, it means that we've got to do it collectively, and particularly when we're watching real challenges that our families are facing and real obstacles that we've got to be able to approach and address together. So when we say that this is going to be a state that leaves no one behind, we mean exactly that. And that is part of the true beauty and part of the true genius of this entire program. Because we're talking about a $6.1 million federal grant that will tackle hunger by supporting our farmers and our watermen and all of our producers. So we're talking about a grant that's going to literally be a win-win-win. Because oftentimes when we're having these conversations about what does it take and who's going to be involved, they're siloed conversations. They are not. Because the solutions are going to be collective. And the people with obligation to be part of that solution is going to be all-inclusive. We do not need to choose between supporting agriculture, supporting our seafood sector, and fighting hunger. We can and we must do all of the above at absolutely the same time. And that's what this represents. And so we are here to celebrate this grant. We're also here to celebrate people like Bobby Priggle, who's a dairy farmer over in Baltimore County, and who I'm very much looking forward to eating this ice cream. Because we want to make sure that it's not just the ice cream, but the milk is actually getting to market and supporting more of our families. It is about supporting people like the Secretary's talking about, like Nick, who helps to catch and sell local oysters, and now because of a $500,000 investment set aside from this grant, we're going to focus on making sure that our entire state is eating blue catfish nuggets. And it's about helping people like Bernie, who I just met earlier, who for Bernie's farm, it's not just about the product that's being created, Bernie's also very intentionally hiring returning citizens and people who are re-entering back into society to make sure that there's a pathway for economic growth for them as well. This is how we win, Maryland. This is how we win because we are unafraid to solve big problems in big ways. We are unafraid to get to know each other again. We are unafraid to work together. We are unafraid to find big, bold ideas and give them a shot. And if it fails, it's okay. We'll fail better tomorrow. This is about how do we make sure that every single person, every industry, every community, every neighborhood is lifted up and seen. And when we say that this should be a state where we will never tolerate child poverty, we will never tolerate food insecurity because we don't have to, we mean that. And this is a time when we say we're going to need our full team on the field. Everybody. That's what today, that's what these grants, that's what these partnerships, that's what they represent. Because now we have a chance to look away from the hardship and instead choosing to move and choosing to act and choosing to work together. And so we will build a Maryland where no one needs to go hungry, where farmers and watermen can thrive, and where no one is left behind. Congratulations, bless you, and I'm excited to get to work with each and every one of you. Thank you so much.
Well, folks, the work has just begun, and we've got a lot of things to do, and I wanted to thank the illustrious team behind us because this represents a lot of the cogs in the wheel about how we're going to move this forward and how we're going to move to end childhood poverty, poverty in general, while supporting rural Maryland. So with that, thank you all very much for coming. Governor, thanks for spending time with us on this very important matter. Cheers. Have a great day.